No matter where you come from, no matter where you're going, here's a place where you can take comfort in the knowing that whether if you've come to stay a while or just passing through, this door is open to you. Come and let's be silent. Come and share a hug. Come, let's pray together. Come, love and be loved. From the blissed out to the turned out, from the pampered to the abused, this door is open to you. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. The God in us recognizes the God in you. The God in you. Whether you're black or white, gay or straight, Christian, Buddhist or Jew, this door is open to you.
Good morning and welcome. This door is truly open to you. We want to welcome each and every one of you to the love and the light right here at Unity of Blue Ridge this morning. We always begin our time together in a prayer, and so I invite you to take this opportunity as you come on in and we turn our awareness within. We just give thanks for this day. We just give thanks for the recognition that every day is a gift. Every day is a gift. And that whatever we hold in our heart, be it a joy or a sorrow, that it's all upheld in love. And so we lean into that this day as we explore the boundaries of our vision, the limitations of our perception, and the truth of who we are in spirit. And so we open this day to the blessings that flow individually and collectively. We open our hearts this day to all that is going on around our world and the tragedy of war, of people being caught up in taking sides. And so we hold that deeply in our heart this day, in particular as we step into that, as we're present to it. And as we hold that peace and compassion in our heart, as we hold that sorrow and sense of loss, may we be here together in light and love and know that it's a blessing to be right here. And may we in some way be lifted and guided that we may be a greater presence of healing for our world. And so for this, we let go and open and allow. We are truly grateful. Thank you, God. And so it is. Thank you for being here. We invite you to stand. We're so excited to have Amy Steinberg with us today and our very own Beth Beloit. We're going to invite you into a song that says, I'm alive with the Spirit of God. Here we go.
I am alive with the Spirit of God. 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 I am alive now, alive with the Spirit of God.
Sing that one again, alive.
I am alive with the Spirit of God. 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 I am alive now, alive with the Spirit of God.
I'm at home.
I am at home in the Spirit of God. I am at home in the Spirit of God. I am at home in the Spirit of God. I am at home in the Spirit of God. I am at home now, at home in the Spirit of God.
Sing that last line.
I am at home now, at home in the Spirit of God.
You are the home, that Spirit of God. Take this opportunity to turn and to welcome one another this morning. Welcome into this beautiful space. We welcome each and every one of you that are joining us virtually. Some of you we saw recently. To each and every one of you that are adding your consciousness and your heart, we feel it, and we send our love back to you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Lead me, love.
Lead me, love. Lead me on. When I'm weary, make me strong. Lead me, love. Help me grow. Lead me, love. Lead me home.
Sound beautiful. Sing it out.
Lead me, love. Lead me on. Lead me on. When I'm weary. When I'm weary. Make me strong. Make me strong. Lead me, love. Help me grow. Help me grow. Lead me, love. Lead me home. Dave.
Play it out. Dave Delarosa. Lead me, love.
Lead me, love. Lead me on. I am ready. I am ready. I am strong. I am strong. Lead me, love. Watch me grow. Watch me grow. Lead me, love. I am home. I am home.
Yeah. That's powerful. Thank you. You may be seated. Amy, that's an Amy Steinberg song. Yeah, it's so good to have Amy in the house and this amazing unity band. Give it up for this band. They'll be back. Wow, we want to welcome each and every one of you, and this is the time in our service where we acknowledge our children, our youth, our Sunday school program, and let you know that thanks to your support, we have 4 of our teens with some of our sponsors who are in St. Simons, Georgia this morning at a youth rally, their very first, and so we send them our love and our appreciation as well. And so to those that are with us here, to those that are already in the back, to our young people, and we just through them bless children everywhere with this blessing that says together, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. It's so wonderful to have you all with us today. Thank you. And we also extend that warm welcome to each and every one of you. You know, it wouldn't be the same without you here enjoying this with us and creating this together. We'd like to acknowledge those of you that may be here for the first time. Whether it's your first time here or your first time online, we extend a special welcome. And to those of you in the building, we have these cards with a red heart. If you just raise your hand, our welcoming team will do their best to find you. And Unity folks, you can lovingly point where you saw a hand go up to help our welcoming team find them. If you wear that red heart, it allows us to acknowledge you as someone, as a newcomer, and we can make ourselves more available for any questions. We do have a welcome center just as you come into the church. But we want to welcome each and every one of you, again, whether you know it's your spiritual home or this is your first time. And so we extend that blessing to each and every one that says, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. Thank you for being here. I also want to extend a huge, huge welcome or gratitude, thank you, to all who helped make, through your presence, through your volunteering, from our singers, our choir, all the volunteers that made our homecoming weekend a huge success. Give yourself a hand. Thank you so much. Last weekend, from whether you helped put together packets for our teams that came in, whether you made coffee, brought pastries, you mowed the lawn, whatever it was that you did, you held it in prayer. Our incredible choir that sang, weren't they amazing? Yeah. And Sarah, our new choir director, who's out of town with family today, I asked her as soon as it was over, I said, this was so good, would you do that again? And then I thought, that's kind of like asking a woman who just finished with labor if she wants another child. You might need to enjoy the baby a little bit before you say yes again. But without hesitation, she contacted me on Monday and said, let's get ready for a Christmas choir. So we're going to begin. Yeah. So we'll take the month of October off. I say we, like she and you all will take the month of October off. And then in early to mid-November, we'll get the date out to you. We'll start rehearsing for a holiday choir. So I just want to thank you all for creating that suite. I received so many letters and texts and people just reflecting of what it did to them. And I want all of you to know that and that we really appreciate you for doing that. Today also, we always have this one candle, which in Unity we call the Christ candle. It symbolizes our unity of spirit, that we are one in spirit. Today we have a second candle that is called the peace candle. And I don't think I need to explain why that's going on. There's so much going on in our world right now that we need to be reminded that we're called to be a presence of peace. And so I'll talk about that a little bit more later in the service, but I just invite you into that tender space today of celebration and of holding very tenderly what's going on all around the world. So we invite you to turn your cell phones off if you've not already done so. If you would turn those off or put it on airplane mode, it helps keep our airwaves clear here. And before Beth shares her reading, I'd like to invite up one of our newest members, Jane Brown. Jane, would you come on up with me just a moment? Peace candle. So, have you ever gone on vacation and then run into someone from your hometown and you were like, how have I not really connected with you before? So last week, or week before last, as we were gearing up to our homecoming retreat, I was also invited to be the keynote speaker at a regional unity retreat called UMAS, UMMAS. It's Unity of the Mid-Atlantic States. And so our band went with me, and we had a big presentation opening night, and it was just a wonderful experience. Then the next morning, as I was having breakfast, I sat down and I thought, you look familiar. She said, I should. I go to your church.
Just saying.
And I looked down and I saw her name tag. I said, you're from Brevard, and I know you look familiar. And so I'd like to introduce to you Jane Brown. She goes to our church.
I was told to keep this mic close up to my mouth, and I usually talk with my hands, so that's going to be a challenge. I'm up here in just gratitude and appreciation. I found a moment when Rev Darlene was not like a duck. I told her at that retreat, I said, you're like a duck. You're very calm on top, but underneath you're paddling like crazy, because she and the music team were that opening keynote speaking team, and for 2 hours it was just glory. It was glory. It was synchronized swimming. It was glory.
Thank you.
So I found a quiet moment to go over and talk to her about my true appreciation for this
congregation and how welcoming everyone was to me. The moment I approached the building, someone opened the door and greeted me, looked in my eyes and said, "Good morning." And I thought, oh, that's lovely. And then I stepped 3 feet into the door, as you all know, and 2 more beautiful people were there greeting me again. "Good morning, welcome, we're glad you're here." And I thought, oh, that's really lovely. And then they helped me get a name tag, and because I'm a retired elementary school teacher, that really made me feel welcome. It's like, oh, I have a name. Good. And then, as you know, we come through these doors, and 2 more beautiful souls are there welcoming you. And they had no idea that I didn't know anyone here, that I had just buried my mother. She died quite suddenly. I had just left the other piece of my heart, my dear daughter, in Naples to come here, and so my bookends were gone, and I don't even have a home. I do have a home. It's a beautiful home, but it's not my permanent home. We're looking. And so I needed a place to come home to. I needed to come home to love. And you were here for me. And every time I come back, you are here for me. And I see you welcoming all those beautiful new people that come in. And we will come to you and we'll tell you, thank you for being here. You're going to love it here. Please come back. So this is just my gratitude for finding a home for my heart and a place where my soul can sing.
Welcome home. Wow. Thank you, Jane.
Wow. Thank you, Jane. Okay. Our spiritual reading this morning is a story from the Buddha. When the Buddha started to wander around India shortly after his enlightenment, he encountered several men who recognized him to be very extraordinary, to be a very extraordinary being. And they asked him, "Are you God?" He said, "No," he replied. And they asked, "Are you a reincarnation of God?" "No," he said. "Are you a wizard then?" He said, "No." "Well, are you a man?" He said, "No." And they said, so what are you?" They asked, and they were very perplexed about the Buddha and all that he brought. And the Buddha simply replied, "I am awake."
The latest is always greater than the last. The future is always sweeter than the past. An ever-expanding expression of the Most High. This life, my life, is love's life. Alive in this love, we go deeper as we go. And as we grow higher, our souls reach below the waters of forever, this eternal flow. This life, your life, is love's life. So right this moment as it unfolds inside your soul is a well of gold. You are everything that has been told. You are whole. You are whole. You are whole. provided with promise, the beauty of the heart. Each ending is bending its way to a new start. And this love is a beacon for all that we are. This life, my life, this life, your life, this life, one life is love's life, love's life. So right this moment as it unfolds inside your soul is a well of gold. You are everything that has been told. You are whole. You are whole. You are whole. So right this moment as it unfolds inside your soul is a well of gold. You are everything that has been told. You are whole. 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 The latest is always greater than the last, and the future is always sweeter than the past. An ever-expanding expression of the Most High. This life, my life, this life, one life is love's life. Whoa, whoa.
Yeah. Thank you. Woo. Amy Steinberg, don't sit down yet. While you're standing, you get back, get a little workout this morning. Find two people, and if you would turn to them and say, I see you, my sister in spirit. I see you, my brother in spirit. I see you, my sister in spirit. I see you, my brother in spirit. Now hug yourself and say, I see you, my spiritual twin. I see you, my spiritual twin. Thank you. You may be seated. The Sufi poet Rumi said, there's one thing in this world you must never forget to do. If you forget everything else but not this, there's nothing to worry about. But if you remember everything else and forget this, then you will have done nothing with your life. It's as if a king has sent you to some country to do a task and you perform 100 different services, but not the one you were sent for. You're here to do this. Remember the deep root of your being and give yourself to that, to the one presence which already owns your breath and is your moments. Wow. The words of a mystic. Today we're in week 3 of a 7-week series that is based on the book by Lynn Twist, Living a Committed Life, Finding Freedom and Fulfillment in a Purpose Larger Than Yourself. Today we're talking about old narratives, old stories. Do you all know that you have a story? And these inner dialogues, narratives, we have our perspectives and new possibilities. And what it means to bring awareness to the fact that we all have that. But as we begin to realize that we're more than our stories and our scripts and our narratives and even our perspective, each and every one of us have our own unique perspective of how you experience life, how you were groomed and grown up, and all you've been conditioned to be. It's very unique. You're non-repeatable in that sense. And so we're going to see life from our very unique colors and conditioning and who we are. But world and the life becomes very different when we realize that we all come from those different places. We all see through our unique lens, but that's not the full picture. That don't forget the deep root of your own being, which is part of the deep root of your being, which is part of the deep root of all being. That there's the story you, and there's the spirit in expression you. And so how to make that more practical in our life, and then let's get really personal, and let's talk about Israel and Palestine a few minutes. To really make it apply all the way, but let's work ourselves, create some understanding in getting there. There was a father who picked his son up from school. His son got in the car and slammed the door, put his seatbelt on. Ugh, I hate this place. Stupid people. Dad driving and says, "Ooh, sounds like you had a day like I had, son. Stupid people, stupid school. I don't want to be here." Dad realizing he could sense, if you're around, if you have a child, a grandchild, a person you love, you know when they're sitting on something. You know when they're about to cry about the break. Dad knew that. And so he realized that there's an opportunity here. He took a little detour and pulled into what happened to be his son's favorite ice cream shop. And he said, "I don't know about you, son, but I've had a day today. I think we need a treat." And so his son still slams the door when he gets out and drags himself out there, gets their ice cream cone, and they sit down. And it's pretty quiet. They've almost eaten the whole ice cream cone. And the dad says, "Well, man, I had a day today. The boss was just breathing down my neck." And his son looked perplexed, and he said, "I thought you were your boss." And his dad said, "I am." And his son laughed a little bit too. He said, "When we played ball today at recess, I was the last one picked. I'm always the last one picked. They think I'm a loser. I ain't good at sports. Not what they want me to be. I am kind of a loser, and they're stupid." And his dad, with incredible wisdom, said, "Son, you can't choose the filters others use when they look at you. But you can remember that their filters, that they're using, their labels, however they're looking at you, it's not a reflection of you, son. Their filters are a reflection of them." And he said, "Son, I also want you to know you've got filters. And even your filters, the filters that say you're too small, the filters that say you're not athletic, the filters that say whatever these things are that cause you to be uncomfortable in your own skin, don't even let those filters, your filters, be a reflection of your true self." And you can just stop and say, "Wow." Can you imagine? Yeah, go, Dad, somebody said, the power of that. That what if we all really knew that we all look at one another through filters because we do. I can only see you through my story, through my experience, through all that I've learned and been exposed to. And it's very relieving when we realize that your reflection of me is really not about me. Your reflection of me is about you and your filters. But that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is our reflection, our filters, and what they say about us, and how we really need to bring awareness to the fact that we all look through whatever colored glasses and filters, and that how we are perceiving the world out here, what is coming back through to us through that. You see, that's the powerful teaching that Jesus was teaching those that followed him when he said, let your eye be single. Let your eye be single. Because you have a story. You're a physical being. You may be a Jew. You may be a Palestine. You may be black. You may be white. You may be gay. You may be straight. You may be rich. You may be poor. You may be this. You may be that. Yeah, you're all different. But don't keep seeing the world as only in its different reflections. When he said, let your eye be single, what he was saying is, let your spiritual perception always color whatever your eyes behold. That let your vision, your physical vision, be informed by spiritual oneness, and everything begins to change. How we show up begins to change. How we interact and treat one another, how we talk to ourselves. Where we perceive dead ends, we realize through spiritual perception, that's nothing. When Jesus said, say to this mountain, be removed, and it can be removed, he wasn't talking about magic tricks. It was, again, a lesson in perception. No matter how big the mountain, when you come through spiritual vision and spiritual perception, there's nothing too big. There's nothing that can't be overcome. And so to live in a world, it's not an either or. It's a both and. It's a beautiful thing when we can celebrate each other's differences. When we can be boggled, sometimes literally dumbfounded by how in the world did you arrive there? How in the world do you see it that way? But yet not be threatened by it. And to realize that in our own life, to begin to hold much more gently how we do see things and how we do see other things. Many years ago, I was with a group of friends. I had a good friend, and she was a single mom with 2 children. And so there was an evening we were working on a church project, a group of us, and she came and we all had dinner as we were working, and she had her 2 kids with her. And her daughter, who was probably 5th or 6th grade, at dinner started talking about the astronauts and how in school they were learning about the Apollo and the men walking on the moon. And her daughter said, I was just so disappointed that there weren't people on the moon. I was really hoping the teacher was going to say that they discovered a whole new bunch of people on the moon. And so then we adults started saying, yeah, and some of the people said, I know, I wish there were moon people, or sometimes I wish I could live on the moon. And then it got analytical, like, but I don't think we could breathe on the moon. But we went around some of that a little bit. And all the while, Cody, the little 4-year-old, is listening. And then it quieted down a minute, and he said, well, I think there could be people on the moon. We just don't have the eyes, the kind of eyes that can see them yet. Drop your fork. I mean, it's like, what? Preach, little boy. I don't think, maybe we don't yet have the kind of eyes that can see them. You see, Jesus and the mystics and the master teachers, Rumi, they were saying the kingdom of heaven is here and there. There's so many realities that are possible, but here's the question. Can you perceive it? Can you at least believe in it? Can you sort of sense it, discern it, know it's possible? Do you have moments of it? Can you hold it within yourself at least as a possibility and a vision? And do you hold it at times in your life for yourself? Do you have the kind of vision that can perceive a spiritual reality, a different possibility? And so today we talk about recognizing the limitations of our perception. In Unity, we have a great example to look to, and that's the co-founder, Myrtle Fillmore. Many of you know her story. In the late 1800s, a mother with 3 boys, married to a husband, living in the Midwest. Myrtle grew up in a family where many of the women, her aunts, her ancestors, had died young. She had struggled with some illness when she was young, and so she had a story about herself, and she had facts. Now let's pause right here and say, what we are not talking about is saying that facts don't exist. Because that's a real big mistake in some spiritual traditions, is to just ignore it, affirm over it, pretend it's not there. Truth is about taking the facts at hand and staying open to a spiritual truth that can be laid upon whatever it is we're dealing with. And so Myrtle had internalized some fears. What if I die early? I'm a sickly person. I'm probably not going to live long. And so when in the late 1800s she was struggling and was sick and had a diagnosis of tuberculosis, it got worse and worse and worse. Until the doctors, the medical profession said, you really just have months at best to live. And she was very sick. But what happened is she and her husband were desperate for a different outcome. And so someone told her about this person that was coming through. His name was Dr. E.B. Weeks from the Chicago School of Metaphysics, and he was giving these lectures. And they felt drawn to go to that, and so she mustered up the strength she had. She got out and she went that night. And that night, as the lecture was being given, she heard some words. She heard the lecturer say, you're all children of God. You're a child of God. And you inherit the life of God. You don't inherit sickness. Now, Myrtle had one of those moments where the hairs on her arm stood up because it was touching a story that was ready to be healed. You see, what wanted to be healed, what always wants to be healed, is the story, the illusion. That would have us believe that we're locked into our earth suit, that our wholeness, that our well-being, that our worthiness is limited to the packaging that we're in, versus realizing, no, honey, I'm the light. We're the light, and I'm meant to bring that light to bear and do all I can with this package and make the best of my capabilities. So Myrtle Fillmore heard, I'm a child of God. I don't inherit sickness. I inherit the life of God. And she began to work with it, and it did not happen like that. It took about 18 months. But if you read her story, what began to happen was the thing that got healed was her story, her beliefs. She had to realize she had perceived herself as a certain way, and she was being called on to have spiritual vision. It didn't mean that she didn't do remedies and treat the facts, deal with the illness, do her best to be with it. But as she began to lay claim to her spiritual inheritance, that became more important than the other. And as was her case, she experienced a complete physical healing and lived to be in her 80s. Now, if you have a challenge and you're not physically healed, don't look at that as failure. Every story and every healing is different. Trust yourself. But if we all aim for the ultimate healing to be, heal my case of mistaken identity. Let me know my roots of oneness. Let me know the truth of my being. Let my soul rest in that. And from that wellness, let my life overflow. That was Myrtle Fillmore's story. In the scriptures, there's a story of a man called Saul who had a transformation, and his name was changed to what? Paul. And if you remember Saul, as the story goes, now in Unity, when we look at the Bible, we're looking at it as a text that includes characters that are telling us something about the characteristics of our spiritual journey. At its deepest level, the Bible is a story from Adam consciousness, from one who perceives themselves as outside the kingdom, separate and cast off. It's a story from Adam consciousness to Christ consciousness, one who is with the image and likeness is God, and they are one. And so we can look at these characters and think, well, something in their life applies to my spiritual journey. Well, so it was with Saul. Saul was very dedicated. He was out to persecute the followers of the way, who in our language today were the Christians. Jesus, this radical rabbi, and these people were talking about things that were going up against the Orthodox religion at their time. And so he was a man of the law, and he was out to shut them down. And as the story goes, one day he's traveling on a road to Damascus, and while he's on his horse, this blinding light, he's literally blinded by the light, falls off the horse, can't see, and somebody has to help him. And there's a journey that he goes through where he becomes completely vulnerable. Now look at the metaphysics here. He's lost all sight. He can no longer see life the way he used to see it. He can no longer perceive life the way he used to perceive it. And he has this radical transformation where this voice speaks to him and says, why are you persecuting me? Why are you persecuting God, the Christ of your being? Why are you persecuting me? It's your own self. It's me you're fighting against. And as the story goes, he has this incredible awakening. His name is changed because in that tradition, your name was an expression of your nature. And so if you had a radical change, well, then your name, your nature had to reflect it. So that's why he went from Saul to Paul. And as the scriptures say, he became one of the most dedicated followers of Jesus at the time. How does that apply to us? All of us have our stories that we live in. Some of them you know. You grew up and you saw things a certain way. In my lifetime, I grew up in eastern North Carolina. I literally lived in a street where the whole street, aunts and uncles lived in the houses beside me. My grandparents had grown the land. We could run around anywhere because it was all family. I went to church with family. My uncle was the minister for a while. I saw like this. I saw the way they saw. Ram Dass calls it our somebody training. We all go through our somebody training. This is who you are. This is what you're good at. This is how you're supposed to act. And boys better not cry. And boys better not be, vulnerable. And girls need to act like ladies. And for heaven's sakes, don't be too loud, Amy. And whatever it is that people will try to make you fit. She's like, I'm a little Jewish girl. They try to make you fit in their mold. But as a young, impressionable child, we pick that up. And sometimes your very safety depends on being able to follow that. And that's why Ram Dass says we all reach a point of we have to get rid of our somebody training and open up to the greater spirit of our being. And so you've had it, I've had it. We all have had that. And so to realize that whatever I'm looking at in life, I can only see it from the place that I stand, from the way that I see it. And so there's some things that we can do to begin to realize that we all have our filters, our perceptions, our story. You have them. Now the stories can be healed, can be transcended, but they'll always still be a part of your greater story. And hopefully it makes you more compassionate. Hopefully it makes you realize that others are in their story too. And so what are some of the things we can do to move beyond our internalized story? Number one is know you have one. Number two is know they do also. Number three is begin to bring awareness to differentiate the roots of your being, your spiritual self, from your story. You still have a story, you still have your differences, but you are in awareness of it rather than it being in possession of you. That's a huge difference when you begin to be in awareness of it, and it no longer just runs unconsciously through you. Know you have one. Know that they have one. Be able to differentiate yourself, the root of your being, your spirit, from your story, from your limited perspective. And number 4, learn to place it all in what I'm going to call today the Sacred Heart. Someone once asked a teacher, what is consciousness? How do you describe consciousness? And a teacher went up to the blackboard and drew a whole bunch of dots. If you can just imagine a whole pile of dots on that big screen. The teacher drew this little circle around some dots and said, this is your consciousness, this is your awareness, these are your experiences, this is where you are in the universe, this is all you know. And then the teacher said, and as life begins to happen and change, maybe you say, well, I don't believe this anymore. You can erase a few and you can change, and now I've seen this and I've seen that, and your dots begin to change and morph. But what real spiritual awareness is about is realizing that at any time on this earth, you are still experiencing life through some of the dots, and yet there's a part of you that is that screen that holds it all. That's the consciousness, that's the sacred heart, to learn to realize that that's where we're held and we can hold one another in that space, and that's where the healing and the transformation takes place. So to know you have one, to begin to differentiate, to know you have one, they have one, to differentiate from it, and then to, Rumi also says, out beyond all ideas of right and wrong, there is a place, and I will meet you there. Out beyond all form and label, there's a place, and I will meet you there. And that's the place that we want to spend time in, because that's the place that helps us more fully identify, as Jesus and other master teachers, they reach such a point that they no longer operated as their story self. They operated as the oneness of spirit. But if you read the scriptures, a whole lot of times Jesus said, let me come apart for a while. It means having to return and have quiet time and go back and back and back, because you're going to get caught up one day in this day and age of social media, of news, of people's opinions, one day, and you can be so wrapped up in all of that that you lose sight of everything. Amen? You think, like, I'm doing great, but now I have to get out of bed and actually drive somewhere. And so it's not just going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4 step and done. It's a constant, everyday practice. Some of the things that you can learn to do is watch your language, is to say things like, well, from where I'm standing, this is the way I see it. From my vantage point, this is the way I understand it. Brene Brown, who's a great teacher, professor, I had the opportunity to train with her a few years ago before she got wildly popular. And she used something that I've used many times since. What she was working with and practicing is when she and her husband would get into some kind of, difference, or she and her colleague, she would say, well, the story I'm telling myself is this. The story I'm telling myself about why you're acting like this. And so they did a study. They got a bunch of junior high school students who use their cell phones a lot. Now, how many of you know that, like, if you're texting somebody, and then when you're waiting and you know they're texting you back, but you can't yet see it, what do you see? ... dots. So they did a bunch of tests with junior high school students, where they would have a junior high school student, maybe them and their friend were having a little tiff, and they would send the friend a text that says, why didn't you speak to me when I saw you in class today? And then they would see the ... dots come up. And they would ask them, what's the story you're telling yourself while the ... dots are going on? And the kids would say, well, the story I'm telling myself is they don't like me anymore. They're not going to be my best friend. They were always negative stories. Always. The power of that is it taught those young people we make up stories. And it's part of our survival. It's part of our brain that if we don't have evidence, we literally make up stories. How many of you ever just done that for fun? Maybe you sit in the airport or a restaurant and you look at people and you say, let's just make up their story. Just have fun with it. It's a good practice, because then when you're finding yourself in judgment, you'll be like, oh, I'm making up a story. I need to get off myself. I really don't know what's going on here. So to begin to cultivate in your language, well, from where I stand, this is the way I see it. All right, the story I'm telling myself. To realize that it's a story. And part of what we are healing, that we are also healing ancestral stories. You're healing the stories of your bones. That, my friends, is what's going on in our world today. One of the most profound ahas I had was when I first moved here. A group from our church, we went through the Building Bridges training. It's incredible training. It's dialogue between black and white, meant to build understanding and bridges. And this is my interpretation of a story that I heard that just left me shook, so to speak. This woman shared a story, and I'm going to call her Gloria. Gloria had grown up in Mississippi. Gloria married her high school sweetheart, and the two of them worked really hard and put themselves through college. Her husband got a job somewhere in the New England area, and let's just say they moved to Rhode Island. They did well. His job was well, even though it was a very predominant white area. They were the only black-skinned people in that area. They were fairly welcomed. Her children were the only blacks in that school. And she said that she noticed that when she would go to their practices, now her son, he was an all-star in sports. He was a 4-point student. He was a well-mannered young man. He was a dynamite kid, academic and sports. And so she'd go and watch some of his games. And she'd be sitting with the other mothers, and they're cheering, and their son makes a shot, and they're like, my son, Peter, he is so smart, he's so bright. They're just bragging about their sons. And she noticed herself not really saying much. And even if they'd say something like, Nathaniel is Nathaniel is a all-star, she'd just say, that boy is a mess. My son is just a mess. And she began to notice that within herself and to think about how she'd also always been so overprotective of him and how her reaction was so different than the other mothers. And so Gloria took it into prayer. What is this? If I'm noticing it, I want to know what it is. That Thanksgiving, Gloria and Nathaniel, the family, went to see the grandparents back in Mississippi. Gloria is sitting on the porch swing in rural Mississippi. They're watching the kids play. And Grandma says, Nathaniel, he's a fine young man. He reminds me of my father and my grandfather. And I'm so thankful that times have changed, because Nathaniel is the kind of boy that would have been the first one on the auction block. And we sure wouldn't want to bring attention to how good he is. Can I have that song, Richard? Can you feel that? Gloria said, something just ran through her whole being. That's it. I've been so overprotective. I don't want to draw attention to my son. And why? Because in my bones, there's a part of me that remembers that years ago, if a spotlight was put on that talented young man, he would have been the first on the slave auction block. Now that's a truth, and we need to know that's a truth. So just breathe that in. And you see, I have cried all week. My partner had me tell stories, so we were thinking I could get through it. But this is just tearing me up. What's going on in our world? This needless violence. When I look at the caravans of Israelis and Palestinians, this is probably why I've been crying, because I ask myself, what if that were my grandparents in one of those caravans? What if those were my babies, my sister, my brother? Would I care if they had a label of an Israelite or a Palestine. No. They're people. They are people. And there are no bad people, but there are a lot of people in bad places. We are all children of light. We all come from our story. And so, for us, to me, the important thing is to know, I've been hesitant to even post on Facebook because there's such a push right now. Who are you for and who are you against? When we look back in our roots in Christianity, way back, before Christianity actually, the ancient Egyptians, their word for human was Egyptian. The Greek word for non-Greek is barbarian. Through our history, we've called ourselves human and them non-human. We've called ourselves God's people and we've called them God's enemy and therefore our enemy, and we've justified that in the name of religion, and we as a spiritual people are here to change that. Because we do not believe in a God that says some are in the light and the others are evil. We do believe that evil is an energy, that people can act out evil. But just because you have a child that is a wayward child and may do evil things, it doesn't mean we have permission to dehumanize them and demonize them. As a matter of fact, it calls for a deeper love than we may even know how to reach. And that's where we're being stretched right now. There are some wayward children out there under the name of Hamas. But let us not reduce them to an evil. The ideas are evil, but those people are so lost. And if we start taking sides that I'm standing for them or for that, we are perpetuating the very thing that is fueling what has happened, and that is called separation. That we are called to stand and to realize we're healing ancestral stories. People are showing up in ways just like Gloria was. Maybe they're protective, maybe they're fighting out. They're showing up in ways because there's these unconscious stories running us, and we're being called to step into the light. I was so moved this week as well when in the first music festival event where the first group of individuals were killed by the attackers. There's a family that had just moved into that area, and in the Jewish custom, in order to have a burial, a funeral, you have to create what's called a minyan. You need 10 people. Now, this family had just moved into the area. They lost their 24-year-old daughter. They can't even have a proper Jewish burial because they don't even know 10 people, and all hell just broke loose. So they sent out on Facebook and they put their dilemma, and they said, well, if anybody is willing to show up, we need 10 people. Over 10,000 people showed up. 10,000. They blocked the whole city trying to get in. The media would have you believe sometimes, and I'm not downplaying the media, but there's things that would have us believe that the whole world is evil, and it is not. People, you are good people. There are good people all over the world, and there are lost people. And we are called to tend to our own lenses, our own perceptions that are still saying us versus them. And so how many of you are willing with me to bring some awareness to that? And let's heal it in our hearts. Now, the good news is, when I was at the Parliament of the World's Religions, I met two men with an organization. As a matter of fact, they won an award. One is an Israeli, and the other is a Palestinian, and they're working on it. They told us about the fact that even in the United States, they're holding summer camps, bringing in children from Israel and children from Palestine who've never met each other, who've only known each other as evil, to spend 3 weeks together. And at the end of 3 weeks, what do you think they're doing? The equivalent of hugging each other and singing Kumbaya. And they're sending those children back. That's how it's going to be changed, when we can begin to do that in our hearts. And I promise you, there's an upswell, and that's why it's coming up, that we need to heal this ancient story. And so I will not reduce you to an evil enemy. I will not dehumanize nor demonize you. For if I do, I become an instrument of darkness and obstruction and of divisiveness with my own self. I will not reduce you to an evil enemy. I will hold you in the light. And I will hold myself in the light, and I will hold all that I cannot understand in the light. I can hold you accountable and still hold you in the light, just as I would do for a wayward child whom I dearly love. And if danger knocks at the door and I must protect my household, I will do so, yet with great sorrow and sadness, for it is great loss. When acts of violence are perpetuated, yes, they must be stopped. But let us be mindful of how much energy we put into gearing up for the fight versus gearing up to be people of light and people of peace and building bridges of understanding, of fostering and nurturing healing ways and inclusive ways, and of developing hearts big enough to be the Sacred Heart. That's what we're here to do. How many of you are willing to gear up to be people of light as never before? And to allow this to bring out our compassion. If this hasn't moved us to compassion, then we really need to see what story am I hooked into. Because there is really nothing around this other than utter sadness. It's just sad. It is so sad. And hopefully it brings us to cry and to be compassionate and to say, what do I do? What can I do? And not give up. Because under that sadness, under sadness or joy, there's always love. And so lead us into that. So we're going to lay it down on the altar of love. So I lay it down and I set it free. I let my heart rest. I let it be. I lay it down. I set it free. I lay it down on the altar of love. Sing it out with me. I lay it down. I set it free. I let my heart rest. I let it be. I lay it down. I set it free. I lay it down on the altar of love. I invite you to close your eyes. Holy Spirit, we acknowledge that there's things at times that just feel so yucky and heavy. And why, we ask, why? Why does it happen? And so we allow ourselves to move into that place to become open and receptive. To do what we can do always. And one thing we can do always is to say, what story is this bringing up in me? Is there a fear? Is there something in me that this is bringing to the surface? Is there a gift that I have that is being pulled into the light that says it's time? You can stand up and show up and speak up in these ways, right in your circle of influence. With the resources and the reach that you have, you can tend to this. And so rather than be caught up in what we can't do, in the things that literally overwhelm, to allow that to move us to compassion as it should. Because how can we be at peace when there is such pain and unrest and needless acts of violence going on in our world? How can we be at rest when there is such political mockery and when so many things that are just not right are being standardized? We don't ever want to become complacent. And Holy Spirit, we also want to be big enough for joy. that there is truly place to have sorrow and joy, because what underpins it all is pure love. And when we give ourselves to love, we can mourn with those who suffer. We can ponder and wonder with those who are bewildered in the midst. And we can also know, because in through and by our spiritual perception, that we are rooted in spirit. And that in spirit, there is a level that all is actually well in spirit. And so, as paradoxical as it sounds, may we be the people that have heart and presence big enough and have enough compassion to become the bridges. Let us be mindful of our perceptions and to hold it more gently. That from where I stand or the way I see it, yeah, this is my perception, and there's so much more. And I'm open to learning. I'm open to growing. And I'm open to going deep enough that the joy and the peace that passes understanding can be a constant energy in which I live and move and have my being. And so it is from this place that we hold in our hearts not only Israel and Palestine, but Russia and Ukraine and so many other places that are not in the media. We hold in our own country. We hold in our own neighborhoods. In any places where there's an us against them. Let us create a space that transcends that. It always brings it back to what's really real and really true, and what are we really seeking to accomplish. May we be highest instruments of light and love and joy and compassion. And for this, may we be blessed. And so we lay it down and we set it free. I let my heart rest. I let it be. I lay it down. I set it free. I lay it down on the altar of love. I invite you to open your eyes. I'm going to ask you to bring back a smile, which might seem like a little weird thing at this moment, but you can sure use a smile at any time. To be gentle with yourself, to open to that joy that is big enough to somehow keep us moving forward. So I'm going to invite you to stand and let's sing it together. So I lay it down and I set it free. I let my heart rest. I let it be. I lay it down. I set it free. I lay it down on the altar of love. You got it. Sing it out. We lay it down. We set it free. We let our heart rest. We let it be. We lay it down. We set it free. We lay it down on the altar of love. So we're going to repeat as necessary, laying down the stories. Just keep that going a minute. Laying down the stories, laying down the hook lines when we get hooked in, laying down the double vision and remembering to have single vision, laying down the overwhelm when we don't know what else to do but to lay it down and let it go. So you want to lay that down and sing it one more time. Find something you need to lay down. Here we go. So I lay it down. I set it free. So just tell one person, I'm glad you were here, but this was for me. Glad you were here, but this was for me. I'm glad you were here, but this was for me. All right, I invite you to be seated. So one of you, I won't name any names, but one of you recently sent me an email and you shared a correspondence that you had with someone else. So one of you, our members, sent a friend a Sunday service and told them they thought it may help, and so they listened to our Sunday online service. The friend who'd never listened before sent a text back and said, why did you do that? I've now got mascara all over my face. So they sent that to me because sometimes we call our church the joy of the runny mascara. So, but just remember, there's joy in there as well. So I want to thank you all for being a part of this. This is the final week. If you want to join one of the book groups, Linda, I don't know if you can back up. I think I jumped some pictures, and so if you get, there you are. Some of the groups last week sent pictures. We've got about 12 different groups that are getting together. They're different towns. You know, when I say towns, West Asheville, North Asheville, one's here at church, Hendersonville, Pisgah Forest. So different groups are meeting, different times, different places, and they're digging into this deep. One person said this week, we never get beyond the first question, but we're having a really great time. And I'm like, that's the whole point. Just connect and discuss. And so this is the last week. After the third week, we don't add new people. But if you want to join, there's sign-ups. There's a whole table. If you'll show us the next, it's that table that looks like that. All those different colored things on it. So if you want to sign up for a book group, it's still time to do that. Each of the groups are also challenged with doing some kind of community project. So I really look forward to hearing what they come up with for that. So thank you all for that, for your presence and for being here. I want to invite Amy to come up and prepare for her next song. And we invite our ushers and our prayer chaplain to come forward as they come up as well. This is the time in our service where we give thanks for the gifts that flow through this ministry, the gifts that flow through each and every one of you. Michael, in just a minute, our treasurer, will give us an update. But let us bless and acknowledge these gifts together, and as we say, divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. I am now in perfect balance and flow with the universal tides of giving and receiving. Thank you, God, and so it is. Cindy with the prayer box will be available after the service in the back area if you would like a prayer. Amy, and then Michael's got something to share with us.
So, really quickly, I just want to say what an amazing talk. Can you give a round of applause? And I just want to say I have a performance Friday night. If you're interested in knowing about it, ask me at my table in town in Asheville. And if you've never seen me here before, I usually write a rap based on the talk, and it'll be at the end of this song. And I love this idea of changing our stories, so that's what this tune's about. Oh, melodies in your head play over and over, listening to doubt about how life has turned out. I'm here to tell you it's not over, not over. Time to rise again, it's what life is about. Yeah, don't you know? This road we travel twists again and again. We can never go back, so keep on looking ahead, yeah. I'm here to love you again and again. Find you, remind you to never give in, no. Never give in, no. Come on, get up. I know you have it in you. Get up. I know the truth of you. You've been on the ground too long, singing the same old sad song. If you get up, I know you will carry on. Carry on. We're gonna carry on. Life is not a fantasy. Look closer, look closer. There is a richness beyond what you dream. Your highest self is getting closer and closer. Faith will make a way. Believe it to see. Yeah. Believe it to see. Come on. Get up. I know you have it in you. Sing it with me. Get up. I know the truth of you. Get up. You've been on the ground too long, singing the same song. If you get up, I know you will carry on. Carry on. Keep it going. Carry on. Oh. All right, break it down. Break it down. You're more than your story, more than your script. Beyond all of that, there's a deep root of spirit. The filters we have don't reflect the truth. You see me the way that you see you. Let your spiritual vision inform all you do. See beyond the mountain, see the people on the moon. Can you perceive heaven on earth now? Can you see it, perceive it, believe it, allow? You're being called on to see through the story. You are the light, you're a child of the glory. We have to get rid of our somebody training. The negativity of stories is draining. Our out beyond the right and wrong is a place. Meet me, come along. Open the sacred heart to see clearly. We're healing the ancestral stories. We know in our bones there's a healing going on, so let yourself sing a brand new song. We must seek the peace when the war has begun. Reach out to the light and 10,000 will come. Woo! Reach out for the light, 10,000, 10,000 will come. Break it down. Get up. This is your time now. Get up. Remember who you are. Get up. You are wise and you are strong. Always all right all along. I know you get up and I know we're gonna carry on. Carry on. Carry on. Oh, oh, oh. I said get up, get up, get up, get up. Yeah, get up, get up. I know we're gonna sing that with me. Get up, come on. Get up, hey. Get up, get up. I know we're gonna carry on one more time. Get up, hey. Get up, get up. Get up, get up. I know we're gonna carry on. Wow. Thank you. Woo.
Amy Steinberg, how did you say in a rap what it took me 30 minutes to get around to? Give her a hand again. That was incredible.
Wow. Do we have a lot to be grateful for, or what? I'm grateful I don't wear mascara. Nobody told me I was going to have to follow both of you. One at a time is enough. And this is sort of dry, but this is a reminder that October is our Keepers of the Light campaign. We hold our annual pledge drive in October. It enables us to budget for next year. The website has a Keepers of the Light page. There's some testimonials on there. Michael and Megan Goshevsky said in their testimonial that what we put into this community, we get back in love, fellowship, and prosperity. Take some time to think for a few moments about what this community means to you. I sort of think of our tithing, our gifts, as a spiritual IRA. It builds over time. And it also pays you back. The good news is you don't have to wait for a certain age for that to happen. It can pretty much happen at any time. This is our 4th year for Keepers of the Light. We've upgraded our approach every year. Jessica, who I don't think is here today, if she is, she's back
camp.
with
she's with the teens.
She's with the teens. Yeah, she's at the retreat. She did a beautiful painting out in the lobby, and we're putting a tote board on there to show our progress. We've got simpler forms, we've got new brochures, and we've posted the results. The funds that we raise in Keepers of the Light fund about 50% of our annual operating costs. And as of Friday, which is really just 10 days into the month, we've had 23 pledges totaling $57,000.
Yeah.
That's, everybody deserves a hand for that. That does not include folks who've called in and want to call back. We did make a procedural change. So many of us have been doing the same thing every year. And this year, we don't want to take that for granted. So we're asking you to fill out a form. Even if you just put on there, same as, you'll get a follow-up call from the office to make sure we've got the right card information, there's no expirations, all that procedural stuff. But we're doing great. We're going to ask everybody to let us know what they can do. There will be members of the Keepers of the Light Committee in the lobby afterwards to answer questions. And as always, all of this is said with tremendous gratitude. Thank you.
Michael, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, would you please stand as we bring this service to a close? Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin in our heart. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be, with God as creator. Brothers and sisters are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment, peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Have a beautiful, beautiful week.